this episode of Danielosophy, I'm hosting a discussion about young adults aligning their faith with their college and career goals. Romans 12, 1 through 8 talks about how we should live for God instead of the world. But after high school, distractions seem to burden us so heavily. Even though the Bible counsels us and helps us make choices, talking it out with friends can help us stay on the right track.
If you want to, be visible, that would be cool too. It's okay to be visible. Chris, talking to you. Anyway, and I guess if you're not talking, then you would just mute yourself and whatever. Okay. So the first question is, what do you think about the transition from high school to college? How did that go for you? Whoever wants to go first, you would just unmute yourself and then.
I can go first. And then for those of the that don't know me, hi, I'm Myra. And for those familiar faces, hi. I think that the transition from high school to college was kind of almost like non-existent for me now looking back. I think that I had to figure out everything on my own. Being the daughter of two immigrant parents, I didn't know exactly what college even entailed. I just knew from a very young age because my friends had older siblings that after high school you went to college. And I even remember being in elementary and one of my friends being like, yeah, my sister is coming home from college. And in my head I was like, what do you mean she's coming home from college? Like, what does that look like, right? So for me, the transition from high school to college just kind of happened. I kind of had help from some of the upperclassmen that I was friends with. So I think like my circle of friends definitely influenced my outlook and what I needed to do. And even my classmates from my own grade level, I was like, okay, so this is what they're doing. This is what I'm going to mimic. But other than that, I don't think that I had any guidance. I don't think I ever spoke to a guidance counselor about going to college. I will say though that now in the stage that I'm at in life, I definitely see how God played a role because everything leading up to that point and even thereafter has just fallen into place. And I don't know how to put it into better words, but I don't think that the things that fell into place they weren't just because, as my mom likes to say, it's not because I have a pretty face, right? They're like the works of a higher being. So that's my experience.
Thank you, Myra. Looks like Chris has something to say.
Okay, my camera's on now, so you don't have to be calling me out. I'm Chris, for those of you who don't know me. So I guess to answer the question, my transition from high school to college, I would have to say was amazing. I was excited to have a bunch of freedom and like take on some more responsibilities. I was one of those high school kids who thought they were grown anyways. Like, your parents was like, you think you grown. I got to college freshman year. I was like, I'm grown. Yes, it's me. I'm grown. Hi, I'm here. So that was my like initial transition. And so like, it was basically navigating like right from wrong, but like choosing if I wanted to do right or if I wanted to do wrong. And so basically trying to figure out who I was outside the confines of like parental rules. And I thought that I was choosing God by going to a Christian school, but come to find out it's a little harder than you think going to a private school that's like centered around God and like you have classes about God. I think I read the Bible less while I was in Bible classes than I did when I was just reading it for like personal gain. So I ended up transitioning out of that school and retransitioning again, transferring and having like a totally different experience and having to find God in my major. So yeah.
Okay, question, Chris. What school did you go to?
I went to the Ouachita Baptist University. It's in Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
Interesting. Since I unmuted, I guess I'll go ahead and go next. I had a kind of similar experience to Chris, but not really. So the transition from high school to college for me, well, kind of to piggyback off of what Myra said first, in my household, you were told you were going to college. However, it was something that no one in my family had accomplished. So my parents went, but they didn't really understand how things had changed. They didn't graduate. They went like one semester and then they both dropped out. So just knowing that, can y'all hear that?
No, we can't hear it. It's okay. We can't hear it.
That's normal for me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just kind of transitioning from high school to college. I am not a mom right now. I'm sorry. For the next 45 minutes, I am not a mother. Goodbye.
And for the next 45 minutes, I am a kid playing Pop the Balloon.
I'm sorry, y'all. This is my life, okay? So just to go back to that, I was a mother when I went into college. So my senior year in high school, I got pregnant and transitioned into college. So everything was kind of like transitioning into full-on adulthood, period. So I don't even think I really got to experience what a college life is kind of like. I didn't live on campus. I stayed at home, worked. I was either in class, at work, or at home, period. Like party life, I have no idea what that was like. Like just when you think about what a traditional college experience is, it's something that I never got. And kind of to go back to what Chris was saying, I left Christian University. I went to Houston Baptist, and yeah, being forced into God, I think kind of in a way, kind of just made me take a step back. I was just like, oh yeah, you know what? Nope. I don't want to read the Old Testament again. I don't want to read the New Testament. I don't care about the significance of the rainbow. Don't tell me about the 7 symbol. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, at this point, just the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. The end. Goodbye. Have a great day. I know. Don't laugh at me, y'all. Don't shake your head at me. But that was truly where I was in life. I was just like, you know what? I'm good right now. Work, finish, and keep going. And I ultimately transferred into another university because the crazy thing is I know what's in the Bible. I know everything that's there, but just the fact of passing a biblical studies class is not the same. So in order to bypass all those requirements, I transferred out. Just gonna be honest. That's pretty much it. And here I am now, super successful.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of the goal. I like what all of you said because you kind of brought out a lot of good points about that transition. Because in high school, we think that college is supposed to be this one way, or it is this way, and even when we get there, we don't experience any of it. And then some of us didn't really go to college. We went straight to our careers. We went straight into career fields. James or Alfonso, or like what was that like? Because like I feel like you guys kind of went into the work field first.
Let me give you an
Hello?
Wait,
Sorry.
James, you can go first.
Okay. My transition went from high school to, I guess, partially college was cut short. My first semester, my brother died. I was at a Abilene Christian University, predominantly white private school, and so I didn't get the full, I guess, Christian college experience. So I went back home that next semester. I went to Ouachita Baptist with Chris and my younger brother, and at that school, I thought it was going to be different because I thought, all right, hey, I'm going to get this full experience. And, you know, Christians are good people and everything I've learned at KAA, it's all right. So when I get there, it's just put a magnifying glass on the world because it just showed me that everybody's, going around having this facade, and at nighttime we're having bonfires and people are smoking and drinking, and then tomorrow morning I'll see you in chapel. So that was my experience at the Christian universities. Going back home, I got the opportunity to start working with my parents, running our driving school. And after my brother passed, I almost took a pause in life, like, hey, like, do I have to do college? Because he was a semester away from graduating. And I was like, man, if college is really that important, like, God, you would have let this man graduate college and at least start his career before, you know what I'm saying, doing that. So I took a step back in life and I was like, is college necessary? One. And then, do I have to do this? Yeah, my family putting pressure on me, and this is something that they expect everybody to have a degree. They put their degrees on the wall. Everybody's supposed to have a degree. But then I always ask the question, like, hey, my brother don't have a degree. So if my life was to end today and that's the only thing I can say, hey, oh, I got a degree from a college, but I didn't accomplish stuff that I actually set out to do, like, what did me going to college do? So me, and not to knock degrees, because I mean, if that's your goal, that's your pathway, good. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna encourage my kids to do it. They don't do it, fine, but I'm gonna encourage you to. But being able to work and then being an entrepreneur and Black-owned business, just gave me freedom. Financially, gave me freedom in my schedule. I can do stuff my friends can't do. And it's something I'm enjoying. Not saying I wouldn't have enjoyed college, but I'm able to do something I'm passionate about. We have a driving school, so I'm a driver's ed instructor. And I'm able to have conversations with kids in the gap that we're talking about. I'm able to have conversations with them about, hey, the next step. What are you gonna do after high school? College isn't mandatory. You can go to the Army, trade school. So I'm using my opportunity to be that gap between, hey, my parents didn't have this conversation. My older siblings was trying to figure it out too. Here's somebody who's kind of knowledgeable. Let me, give my input. Not saying you have to do this, but this is my input. So not going to school, it opened my eyes up. Also, not being in school, I wasn't influenced by peers for 4 years in the same group. Not saying it's a bad thing, but I was able to, I had to figure out who James was, not by going to parties. And not saying I didn't do that stuff, but it wasn't in a school setting. It was, I had to go to a bar to hang out with quote unquote adults. I didn't really have friends on campuses where people were spread out. So me having that interaction, it wasn't, all right, hey, these are the people I'm going to be with for 4 years. These are my best friends. Like, my best friend was gone for 4 years in college. So I just had to find out who I am on my own. Depression, all that stuff, just figuring it out at home, thinking, oh, this is a safe place, and understand that, hey, like, you're going to have problems if you went to school, if you didn't go to school, no matter what, you're going to catch hell, but I'm still able to figure out myself on my own without the constant influence of my peers every day or a roommate every day. That's it.
So I like what he brought up. So he brought up that, college may not officially be necessary in order for you to be successful. Like, many people know that. I mean, you can have 1 year of going to San Jack, and then you can become what do you call those things? Like, those people who help the doctor.
The technical assistant.
Yes, the technical assistants, right? So, like, you can do those types of things, and it still work out, and things, will be better for you. My question is, that brings up the question: do we have to go to college? In your opinion? Well, James gave his opinion, but do you believe? Do we have to go to college, or is it just society saying this is what you have to do in order to be successful?
I think that, you can go ahead.
I don't think that you have to go to college, depending on what it is you want to do. Obviously, depending on the field that you want to go into, it's a necessity. I think it should be different, like what the colleges offer, because why do I have to constantly take history? Why do I have to take math if I'm not going to teach math? Why do I have to take science if I'm not going to teach science? And some of the courses are intertwined, but at the end of the day, so like I was an education major, a lot of my classes, when it came down to my degree plan, were repetitive and redundant. It's like I learned this last semester, why I'm taking another class to just like put an emphasis on it. So I think that it can be done differently, but it's not a necessity to be successful. So I watched my brother go to Baylor for a year, hated it, and now he's making six figures working for Centerpoint as linesman. So it's not a necessity, you know. It's and yeah, that's it. You don't have to. You can be successful in other ways.
Okay, Myra, you had a statement.
Yes. I think that it goes back to what James was saying, figuring out what you're passionate about. And I think that sometimes, when we're 17, 18-year-olds, some of us know what we're passionate about and some of us don't. I mean, some of us, even at our age or older, are still trying to figure that out. I think there's a lot of pressure to figure that out by that age. And, to sum it up, I don't think that college is necessary, but, James was talking about how he figured out who he was on his own. And I had that similar experience, but I feel like I wouldn't have had that sort of like enlightenment had I not gone to college. So I think it goes back to just like, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? And what are the different routes? What are the different options to get to, the different places that you want to be in your life?
So I agree with that. Something that I tell my students all the time, and for everyone to know, we are all pretty much teachers on here. Just kidding. But what you notice is that kids don't really know what they want to do. So you have to help them find out their passion, find out their gifts. Like, what are you good at? And, especially in what Clarissa pointed out was that the American college system is flawed. Why am I still learning 5, 10 different history courses for nothing? Like, it's not that I don't care. And then the history, as we know today, the history that is being taught is not, what is it? Racially, what is the
Racially
word?
biased.
It's racially biased. It doesn't combine
Not
all of the
historically
different.
correct.
It's not totally correct. So,
Mm.
it's those issues that we see in our community, in our education system, that I believe, because we are young and because we can have an influence on our future, that, it's like, hey, like, I don't want my kids learning this. You need to teach them something else, or we need to go to a different school. Like, we have to do something. I think that that's really important when it comes to, figuring out our purpose, figuring out what we're going to do next, figuring out what our kids are going to do next, until the Lord calls us. Hopefully, we get that understanding before it's too late. So thank you. I want to move on. The next question I ask is God prioritized when considering college, and why or why not? Well, maybe not just college, but, just after high school.
I'm going to say it's 50% yes and 50% no. Yes, if you're in alignment with his will. So part of it is you have to figure out what his plan for you is. Everybody on here is saying, oh, figure out what you're passionate about, figure out this, figure out that. But half of the time, sometimes you just need to stop and ask, hey, what is it that you want me to do? Because the very thing that I'm doing now, I know it's where God placed me because of how I got there. But my degree is in psychology and I'm a teacher. My master's is in autism, still not education. So I'm passionate about how the mind works and just the different thought processes, but God's plan was for me to work with kids. And if you look at my resume has nothing but me working with kids. So in that aspect, yes, that got in mind. my decision to go to HBU. But then again, at the end of the day, I was like, it's the same degree, whether I paid $30,000 for it or whether I paid $10,000 for it. It don't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. So part of it was a spiritually motivated decision, but the other part of it was 100% practical.
I have to say, I didn't ask God nothing. I was 18. I wanted to get away from my parents. All of my friends were applying to these big schools. I was told I was.
Bye, y'all.
I'm just saying, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I asked him anything. I thought I cheated the system by going to a private Christian school. I was like, oh, Jesus gonna be there, so it's cool. It's cool. Like, this is in alignment. And like she said, that's not his plans. Those weren't his plans for me. I didn't graduate from there. Ended up transferring schools and transferring majors. Like, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist going into this school, and that's the reasoning I needed to go to this super prestigious school to get into a super prestigious medical school, and got a degree in broadcast journalism and public relations, and now work in higher ed. So like, I didn't consult him. I didn't ask him anything. And so he had to like switch me around before I got, too deep off into that degree. Cause I just can't imagine me at a hospital, like personality, attention span, like somebody's going to die. And I don't want that on my hands. So nah. So yeah, I didn't consult God, but being who I am. And once I got aligned, he, and to this day, he's still whipping me in shape and pulling me together and pointing me where he wants me to be. So.
Alfonso, you didn't get to speak yet. So how have you, moved from, high school to where you are now, and how has your faith, played into that?
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, so, my name's Alfonso, and so straight out of high school, I went into college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was lost, and, I went into for maritime, and then I changed my mind, and then I went into firefighting, and I changed my mind, and I went to paramedic. Now, I followed through with the paramedic school, I did complete it, but you see, college for me, it went a different route. I wasn't born in, I wasn't brought up in the church, so I didn't have that foundation of, being, raised as a godly man. And, later on I had an encounter, and that's what made me go that direction. Now, in college, I deviated from, what I had recently learned, which, about God. And, I started falling into my old habits again. So all those old habits misled me. And, I was with my wife, and she wasn't my wife at the time. She got pregnant. We had so I was going to be a father, so I needed to provide. I was still working at the YMCA. I was not going to be able to, afford my wife and my son at the time. So I started working, and they started offering me more hours, so I took it. And then, again, I was falling into my old habits still, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And all at the same time, God wouldn't let me go. Somehow, some way, somebody would always come and, remind me of who I was in Christ, and that I was forgiven. And, so I went to paramedic, I completed it, but I went more into, like, Daniel was saying, into the industry, where I started working, and I was working hard labor, I was, sweating, and, drenched clothes, sweat. And, it came a point in my time where I said, I have to make a choice. Either I can do this for the rest of my life, right? Because every day we get a chance to choose what we want to be. So I said, I can do this hard labor work the rest of my life, or I know that, here in this country, I can go to school and get something. So I went to this little program, and it was for the industry that I was in, and it allowed me to, further my career in the industry, where I became a safety. So, and it's crazy because it falls in line with what God said he was going to do in my life, because when I was working at this restaurant, they said that I was going to be used to speak to thousands of people. And I think about it to this day, and I said, well, how am I being used, right? But you see, here in the industry that I'm in right now, as a safety, I walk around all day. You know, I give safety meetings. I do the prayers in the morning. You know, I get to speak to everybody every day, get to know them personally. And a lot of these guys, you know, they have the same, you know, background. They're not raised in a godly church or in a godly environment, or some of them have been, and they've been led astray, and they haven't, you know, have come back. So, you know, I'm definitely thankful that, you know, God has me where I am right now, you know, and but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Something that you mentioned is that, you know, you had an encounter and you kind of changed. And I think that's something that we all have, you know, especially because, you know, as kids, we're so not reckless, but we just kind of not do what we want to do, but we just kind of we do what we want to do, and we kind of just think like we'll make it through, you know, eventually someday, whatever. And not saying that that's just a total issue, but you know, we see how, you know, we go through a lot more struggles, and then we have to have that encounter. Do you think that, and I'm asking you, do you think that we have to have an encounter as adults after high school in order to be successful, in order to make that transition? Or can we just, you know, follow the right path? Like, you know, why is it that we are so easily distracted to do something else versus make that move in the I guess the godly path?
Right. So, you know, I don't know. It's just, there's so many things that, like you're saying, that distract us, right? The life itself, right? I mean, bills, trying to make it to the next paycheck, you know, worried about your next test, worried about, you know, if, you know, your clothes, worried about this, your family's calling you, you know, family emergencies, you know, if you have kids, you know, your kids are getting sick, and, or sometimes you're just tired, you want to come home and, you know, release stress, you want to be with the family. And it sounds bad, right? But sometimes, you know, we end up leaving, you know, God for last, right? At the end of the day. Now, you know, for my son, you know, one thing that me and my family, we live by is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And, you know, we try to always, that's one of the main things that we try to live by. But I mean, definitely, man, I mean, life has so many distractions. If you allow it to distract you, it'll distract you and deviate you from, you know, God's will for your life. And, you know, in this life, you know, as we all know, and everyone can agree, is it's about choices. You choose the direction you want to go, right? The free will. Now, I know that along our journey, we have to pray to God, you know, right? Like some of us have said that it's as if, you know, God has, you know, has blessed us, right? Because he has, you know, in the positions that we have and the, you know, where we're at right now in our lives, and reflecting back where we could have been and if we could have made a different decision. But, you know, I'm definitely, you know, I just thank God that he intervened in my life, because if he wouldn't intervene in my life, I don't know where I would have been. And that's, you know, I just, you know, I'm really thankful for it, because it's definitely, and Daniel can even speak for me, he saw the results in high school, you know, where I was a totally different person. In high school, I was just, you know, I just flipped, you know. So to me, that encounter was necessary. I mean, some people, you know, they're born in it, but me, you know, I guess it was a little different, you know. Does that answer your question, sort of?
Yes. I think James has something to say.
I was just gonna say, coming from somebody raised in the church, I thought that mattered. Growing up in a church and a choir, doing all the programs, going to all the camps. Am I good? Daniel, you're muted. Were you trying to say something?
It muted you by accident. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I grew up in the church, and that mattered, you know, going to all the camps, being the holier than thou guy. But it wasn't no substance to that. And it was exposed when my brother passed. Like, I didn't know what to do. And at one point I thought, hey, my brother's death, that's my encounter back with God. I'm coming back, God. You took him away, I'm coming back. But it wasn't. After that, my life spiraled literally for 3 months. I moved back home the end of that semester, and I ended up getting a felony charge 4 months later. Yeah. So if those who went to high school with me, you're like, what, James? Yeah, I got a felony charge. It's bad when it happened, but the stuff that it saved me from long term, I thank God for it, because if in 3 months I was able to spiral that fast, if that wouldn't have happened, it's no telling how far I was willing to go. And ironically, if you into numbers, my probation is 7 years, number of completion. God worked in that, because my charge, you're not supposed to get probation. You're supposed to go away. Minimum 5 years. You're supposed to go away. I ended up going to trial by judge only, which was dumb, because that means only one person can judge me. But it was symbolic to me, because when I die, it's only one person that's gonna judge me. God gave me probation, 7 years. 7 is number of completion. James, whatever it is that you wasn't gonna sit your butt down for at first with your freedom, I'm giving you 7 years to get your life together, figure it out, because I don't know what happens at the end of that 7 years, but I need you ready for whatever I have for your life. If I didn't have that encounter, and mine was just extreme, but if I didn't have that encounter, I wouldn't be able to sit down and think like, dude, your actions have consequences. As we get older, it's not, oh, me skipping choir practice, oh, me skipping Bible study. Like, that has a result on your mental health. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm depressed. Now I'm going through, I had severe depression. They tried to get me to take pills. I didn't want to. I had severe depression, PTSD from my brother's death. All this stuff I never thought I'd have to deal with. But hey, James, you get your life aligned with me, you don't have to do this by yourself. You're trying to do this stuff on your own. You think you're an adult. You think ain't nobody there for you. If you just align with me, you good. And I hate it took what my youth pastor say, getting hit by a brick wall or tickled by a feather. I got hit by a brick wall. God had been trying to get my attention from stuff that was going on. And it was like, all right, hey, bro, I have to put you in the system like a dummy, because you won't sit down and listen to me from all the other encounters I had. It don't have to be that extreme, but I think as adults, we do need encounters with God. It can be a kid. It can be a job change. It can be anything, a new house purchase, anything where he can get your attention. Hey, sit down. Your focus needs to be on me. The only way you're going to make it through the next few days is by being. It's crazy that COVID is extreme, but on probation or going through the stuff, every day I live in, hey, I don't know what the next day gonna be like. So not that COVID is normalized for me, but I'm like, every day is, you don't know what's gonna happen. One day we woke up, people here, the next day they gone. So, you know what I'm saying? Every day I'm like, I don't wanna leave. And well, James, I've been trying to get your attention for years, bro. You ain't paid attention. Come on, let me take you anyway. You know, I don't wanna not be finished with my work before I go. So I don't enjoy the counters, but in James it say enjoy, you know what I'm saying, count it all joy, the trials and tribulations you go to. At first I didn't count it joy, but 5 months away from finishing probation, I'm like, I understand all the life that I messed up and went through and did to be at this point. I don't enjoy it, but if it took all that to God to drag me through, like, I'm proud with where I'm at now because of that. And I wouldn't trade it. I mean, it's gonna be permanent, but I wouldn't trade it because of the person it made me.
I want to say congratulations, James, you know, because you did make it. You have transitioned. I'm proud of you, man. Last question. What can we do, or in your opinion, what can we do as 20 whatever year olds in our community that can change something? Like, I mean, do you think we can actually make a change? Because I mean, we see society today and it seems like, I don't even know how to put it in words. Like, it just seems like we can't do anything. Like, I remember seeing, you know, the whole thing with George Floyd getting shot, And like someone responded, I feel numb to this situation. And I'm like, well, we're not just helpless. I mean, we can do something. And I could not think of anything that I could go out to do because of the virus, because the pandemic is happening. I'm like, well, how can I talk to my students? How can I talk to you about this? How can I talk to her? And it's like, it almost feels like there has to be something else. What do you think can happen?
Well, as a teacher, one of the things that I've caught myself having to do, somebody had accidents, okay, they're fine. A lot of my kids kind of like gravitated towards me like immediately, like the first month, 2 months of school, like those were Miss Hooker's kids, and they made it known like I love her, I want to go. If they had issues at the school, one of my kids had a suicidal episode, and they put me into her action plan. So any day that she was, those emotions, she had permission to come and sit in my classroom all day and not have to go anywhere. So one thing that we can do, because we some of us are educators, we have constant communications with kids, is to make sure that they know who they are and whose they are. Because one thing that they caught me blessing my room. I have oil, and I'll walk around my classroom in the morning and touch each desk and do the threshold. And they caught me one morning. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, blessing my room. It's like, what are you doing that for? Because y'all are heathens. Y'all have spirits on y'all. Y'all deal with stuff outside of the school. Y'all deal with stuff at home. And it's 140. I deal with 140 of y'all on a daily basis, and some of y'all do some stuff that I ain't even did in my youth, or I don't even know nobody who's been through, or seen, or done, or experienced some of the things that y'all go through. So I gotta make sure I'm straight, because I can't take that home to my kids. And that day they started asking me to pray for them. So that was one thing that they made me start a prayer group with them. Like, so every morning from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, we would have a little discussion, and we'd end it in prayer. They go to class, and they always say how that affected them and how they can go and do that for other people. So what we can do is impart, not even just spiritual, because we're really not supposed to do that, impart spiritual guidance on them, but also tell them the truth about the world, because some of them are very sheltered and very ignorant, and don't know like what comes after high school. So like you said, having to, nobody, explain to them the transitions or why they have to take these classes, because their main question, I teach algebra, so of course everybody's, well, I gotta do this, I don't want to teach. We all have to do it, just do it, get it over with. But if you plan on going to college, you're gonna see it again, so pay attention. And that's not even with just math. So like some of the situations that they deal with in high school, you'll probably see it again at some point in your life, So the best thing that we can do with our platform is use it in the wisest way possible, and in the most positive way. Be an example. So I tell them the mistakes that I've made. When they ask me questions, I don't lie to them. I don't sugarcoat anything. I tell them the truth, because I don't want them to go out and be like, oh, she said it was going to be like this. No. This is what I did. This is what happened. And consequences come with every action, good or bad. So make sure that you're putting good out into the world, so good comes back to you. The more negative things that you do, the more bad things you do, the more bad stuff is going to happen to you or your lineage. It may not even happen to you. It may happen to your kids. It might happen to somebody that you're connected to. You don't want to, I just try to make sure that all of my encounters with my students are meaningful, and that they know they have a person. If they don't think that they have another person, they have a person that they can go to answer those questions that they have. And if I can't answer them, then let's find out together, because what's up? That's what I'm here for. Let's find out. So yeah, that's it.
I think Clarissa brought up an interesting point. Just going back to like Daniel's whole question. So like, it's not our job to save the entire world, although it seems like that weight is on our shoulders. It's our job to affect our closest group. And Actually, I got that from my therapist. That's not original. So my therapist, like when all this whole like Black Lives Matter thing was happening, I was like, I need to be out there. Like, but I need to know what I need to do. But I don't want to catch COVID. But I also want to change the world. Like, but I also like want to stop the injustice today, this minute, this hour. Like, do I need to fly to DC? And he was like, whoa, Chris, slow down, stop it. He's like, you cannot. Like, he's like, aren't you a Christian? Because he's a Christian therapist. He's like, you know that's like a God complex. And I was like, I'm gonna leave because you read me. But it's literally, he's like, you just have to operate like in your like scope with your friends, like Clarissa said, at your job, at your workplace, with your family, making sure that you're being the change you want to see in the world. You're being the Christ people need to see. We're not perfect. You know, we're close to perfect, but just being transparent, sharing your story, making sure that you're vocal when you need to be vocal, and knowing how to eloquently like communicate to others like kindness and all sorts of things that just make like helping the world more valuable. So like, don't try to save the entire world. Just focus on your group and your small population and make that the best it can be. And it'll have the butterfly effect. Like it'll in tune, like, even if it's just one person. That's why like pastors are always like, the angels rejoice over one soul. Like take that into consideration. Like heaven rejoices over the one life you changed because you spent an extra minute doing something or being kind or something like that. Don't try to save the world. You're not God.
So Chris, I'm going to tag on to what you just said really, really quick. I think another part that ties into both what you and Clarissa were saying earlier is that yes, you need to learn how to speak up when you need to speak up, but you also need to learn how to be quiet when it's not your turn to speak. Sometimes you just need to learn how to be quiet and sit in silence. Sometimes, like James, I could have saw James spiraling. And if I knew that God didn't tell me what to tell James, sit back and be quiet. Sit back and be quiet, because you're not always helping the situation. Sometimes you're just pushing that person down deeper in the spiral. Like if I'm depressed and I'm telling you I'm depressed, don't ask me why I'm depressed, because maybe I don't know the answer to that. Maybe I haven't figured out why I'm depressed. And even though the situation with you, I'm just using you as an example because you shared your story, but you were saying you were depressed because your brother died. Maybe the root of your depression was not your brother passing away. Maybe the root of your depression was your disconnection. Being completely disconnected from society, being disconnected from yourself, being disconnected from your family, being disconnected from God. Maybe like overall that was the problem. So if I'm telling you, get over it, he's gone, you're not going to make it. It's not going to make a big difference in your life. It's not going to impact you at all, because that wasn't the problem in the beginning.
Yeah.
So sometimes we just need to learn how to shut up. Okay, that's it.
One other thing, so Daniel said, how can we help? I don't, and it's, to me, it's been apparent with how just America handles COVID, but I don't think we're willing to sacrifice the change we need, because it won't directly affect us. It'll affect the next generation. And I don't think we're willing to sacrifice whatever it is to help somebody else, even though it's our kids and grandkids. I don't think as a society, we're willing to accept, hey, this is what we need to do to change. Even though it won't affect me, this is what we need to do for our kids or our grandkids to have a better, pretty much climate change, but more on the social, you know what I'm saying, a social scheme. I don't think people are willing to sacrifice to help the next generation, because whatever we do, it won't directly impact us. It will partially, but I mean, we won't see the full benefits of it as, let's say, our ancestors who did this, civil rights and stuff. They didn't see the full benefits of it. The grandkids or great grandkids will. So I think that's lax with us trying to help. Nobody's willing to sacrifice if it doesn't get that immediate, gratification. Even though my seeds and offsprings would be blessed, we're not willing to, or I'm not willing to sacrifice.
Can I say one?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to quickly tie it up. I think that everyone spoke truth. I don't know if you saw me. I was like, yes, because
we saw you.
I think that we also need to, in order to like make change happen. I want to say thank you, Daniel, for including me. I know that we had a one-off conversation, and one of the last things that I said to you was, hey, by the way, like if you don't want me to be present, if you don't want me to be a part of the group because I'm still kind of like finding myself and what it means to be, you know, I don't even know what to, like a Christian, a daughter of God, and what that means to me and all of that stuff. I was like, I understand. But I think like even creating spaces like these are important so that we can listen, you know, kind of how she said earlier, you know, if I wanted to speak so much, but I'm like, no, let me just listen. You know, there was a lot of powerful things that Alfonso said, that James said, that I was like, oh my gosh, like in your stories, I was learning about myself. So I thank you for kind of creating the space. So also like being there, being that someone for somebody, but also like looking into ourselves and having this conversations. Okay, what is like the next thing? How can we also take care of each other? How can we take care of ourselves so that we can also muster the energy? Like we can't, I don't know how the saying goes, but we can't fill someone else's glass if our glass is empty. So yeah, so also thank you for including me. And thank y'all for sharing your stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been taking notes.
I agree. Oh, okay. So, well, never mind. We'll talk about that after the recording is over. But anyway, there were actually other people who are like, hey, do you want to join this? And then they were asking me about it, and I was like, blah 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 blah. No, like never mind, not you. No. But what I'm grateful for is all of what you said, especially Alfonso, when you were talking about you know, how, you know, and Demaria, you know, the whole kids thing, because you know, when you said that, I kind of just had like a moment. I was like, oh God, he has kids too. Whoa, no, never, please, God help me. But what I'm grateful most of is that, you know, we all have a story, and we all have had an encounter. And what happens is, because of that change, we've learned so much, and now we can apply it to the next generation. And I'm not saying that, you know, we gotta, you know, become preachers and we gotta, you know, start hammering on people's doors. But what I'm grateful for, and the message to everyone who sees this, is that you have a voice, you have an opportunity to make spaces like this, to be, you know, not to be someone who doesn't go to college, but still has faith and still does the best that they can, who goes to college and doesn't have it all figured out, but is trying their best and is not just, you know, and despite life, we're doing something about it. You know, we're doing something. Thank you guys so much for joining us in Danielosophy's first discourse. This is great. This is awesome. I'm so excited. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's gonna be great. We're gonna do more of these. I love you guys. Thank you. I don't know how to stop the recording, but I'm gonna figure it out. Stop.
Thank you for joining us on Danielosophy. We talked about some pretty serious aspects of our culture and our decisions, which can altogether hurt us and distract us from the foundation of our faith. I hope that this discussion reaches your home and your families. Keep the faith, love your neighbor, and we'll get through this together.